The courtroom was silent when the doors opened. Every head turned at once. The woman who had walked away from her marriage expecting to see a broken, defeated man nearly dropped the papers in her hands. The judge looked up. The attorneys exchanged confused glances. Even the spectators sitting in the back rows leaned forward. Because the single father she had left with almost nothing had just stepped out of a brand new Lamborghini. Only 6 months earlier, everyone had believed his life was over. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never giving up when life knocks you down, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. Jackson Reed never imagined his marriage would end this way. For 12 years, he had built his life around his family in Austin, Texas. He worked long hours as a mechanical engineer, coached his son's little league team, fixed things around the house, and did everything he could to provide stability. He wasn't perfect, but he was loyal, hardworking, and devoted to the people he loved. Then everything changed. The company where Jackson worked went through major restructuring. Hundreds of employees were laid off. Jackson was among them. At first, he wasn't worried. He had experience, strong references, and confidence that another opportunity would come quickly. Weeks turned into months. The savings account slowly disappeared. Job interviews ended with polite rejection emails. Stress filled the house like an invisible fog. His wife, Vanessa, became increasingly frustrated. The financial pressure created arguments that seemed impossible to resolve. Every conversation became another reminder of what they had lost. Then came the day Jackson never saw coming. Vanessa filed for divorce. The news hit him harder than losing his job. He tried to save the marriage. He suggested counseling. He promised he would find work again. He reminded her of the years they had spent building a family together. But her decision was already made. When the divorce negotiations began, Jackson shocked everyone. He didn't fight. He accepted almost every demand. He let Vanessa keep the house. He accepted a small apartment. He took only a few personal belongings. Friends thought he was making a terrible mistake. Some even accused him of giving up. But Jackson wasn't surrendering. He was protecting the one thing that mattered most. His son, Ethan. Every decision he made was focused on reducing conflict and shielding Ethan from a painful legal battle. Still, the consequences were devastating. Jackson moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city. The furniture barely fit. The refrigerator was often half empty. Some nights he sat alone at the kitchen table wondering how life had unraveled so quickly. Meanwhile, rumors spread. Former co-workers whispered that he had lost everything. Neighbors assumed he was finished. Even some relatives quietly distanced themselves. The hardest part wasn't the financial struggle. It was the feeling of being invisible. People treated him differently once he was no longer successful. Yet every weekend when Ethan visited, Jackson transformed. They played basketball at the local park. They watched movies on an old television. They cooked inexpensive meals together and laughed about their kitchen disasters. Those moments reminded him why he couldn't quit. One rainy evening, after Ethan had gone home, Jackson sat at his laptop searching job listings once again. That's when he noticed something. A small engineering consulting project posted by a manufacturing company in Ohio. The contract was temporary. The pay wasn't impressive. Most experienced engineers ignored opportunities like that. Jackson applied anyway. The project was awarded to him. He worked obsessively. Days became nights. Weekends disappeared. He delivered results beyond what the client expected. When the project ended, another company contacted him. Then another. And another. Without realizing it, Jackson had begun building something entirely new. Instead of looking for a traditional job, he started offering specialized engineering consulting services. He worked from coffee shops, libraries, and his apartment kitchen. His network slowly expanded. Clients recommended him to others. The business grew. But success did not happen overnight. There were setbacks. Contracts fell through. Invoices went unpaid. Some months were terrifying. Yet Jackson continued moving forward. What separated him from others was resilience. He never allowed failure to become his identity. Every rejection became a lesson. Every obstacle became motivation. Within 2 years, his consulting business had grown into a small engineering firm. Within 3 years, he had employees. Within 4 years, the company secured several major industrial contracts. Revenue exploded. Investors became interested. Industry publications began mentioning his work. The same people who once pitted him suddenly wanted meetings. But Jackson stayed focused. Money was never his primary goal. Freedom was. He wanted control over his future. Most importantly, he wanted to show Ethan what perseverance looked like. As the company expanded, Jackson quietly invested his earnings. Real estate. Technology startups. Manufacturing partnerships. One investment in particular became life-changing. A small renewable energy company that few people believed in. Jackson studied the business carefully before investing. Years later, the company was acquired for hundreds of millions of dollars. His stake became worth a fortune. Almost overnight, the struggling single father who had once counted every dollar became extraordinarily wealthy. Yet almost nobody knew. Jackson avoided social media. He didn't buy a mansion. He didn't chase attention. He continued living modestly. The only visible sign of his success was the Lamborghini he purchased years later, not as a status symbol, but as a personal reminder. A reminder that surviving hardship sometimes leads to places you never expected. Then came the unexpected court hearing. The divorce agreement included a financial review clause connected to custody arrangements and certain support provisions. Both parties were required to appear. Vanessa arrived expecting a routine proceeding. She hadn't followed Jackson's life closely. She assumed he was doing reasonably well but nothing extraordinary. When she entered the courthouse parking lot, she noticed a crowd looking toward a sleek black Lamborghini. Then she saw who stepped out. Jackson. For a moment, she thought she was mistaken. But there he was. Calm. Confident. Walking toward the courthouse with the same quiet dignity he had always possessed. The shock spread quickly inside the courtroom. Financial documents were reviewed. Business valuations were presented. Investment records were discussed. The numbers left people speechless. The man who had once left the divorce with almost nothing had built a multi-million-dollar empire from scratch. But the most surprising part wasn't the wealth. It was his attitude. There was no arrogance. No revenge. No attempt to embarrass anyone. Jackson remained respectful throughout the hearing. He answered questions politely. He focused discussions on Ethan's well-being. He showed no bitterness toward the past. That calmness affected everyone in the room. Including Vanessa. For the first time, she saw the full picture. She remembered the husband who stayed up late helping Ethan with school projects. The father who never missed baseball games. The man who had sacrificed everything to keep conflict away from his child. She realized something painful. Jackson hadn't become successful because he lost his family. He became successful because he refused to lose himself. The hearing concluded peacefully. As people began leaving, several attorneys approached Jackson to congratulate him. Others asked about his business. Some simply wanted to shake his hand. Yet Jackson's attention remained elsewhere. Outside the courthouse, Ethan was waiting. Now a teenager, he had grown into a thoughtful young man who admired his father deeply. The moment Jackson walked outside, Ethan smiled. That smile meant more than every contract, every investment, and every dollar he had earned. Because through all the hardship, he had managed to keep what mattered most. His relationship with his son. Years later, Ethan would tell people that the most important lesson his father taught him wasn't about money. It wasn't about business. It wasn't about success. It was about endurance. Life can strip away your job, your possessions, your reputation. Even relationships you thought would last forever. But as long as you keep moving forward, your story isn't finished. And sometimes the chapters that seem like endings are actually beginnings in disguise. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us never to give up. Special request: comment below with the words, "Never give up," if you believe setbacks can become comebacks. As the sun began setting over Austin, Jackson and Ethan climbed into the Lamborghini and drove away from the courthouse. People watching from the parking lot saw a successful businessman leaving in an expensive car. What they didn't see were the lonely nights, the sacrifices, the failures, and the years of persistence that made that moment possible. The Lamborghini wasn't the victory. The victory was the men behind the wheel. A father who lost almost everything, refused to quit, and proved that true success isn't measured by what you own, it's measured by who you become after life tries to break you.